Welcome to my YouTube channel where we discuss marriage, politics, and sports. Today, I'm going to add my 2 cents to the horrible events that took place in Memphis at the hands of the police unit called Scorpion. Scorpion stands for Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. Isn't that strange? Um, so it's a sad situation that we all had to witness, and it impacted all of us in one way or the other. I didn't even want to watch this, but for some reason, I just couldn't stay away. Anyway, yeah, the challenges of life are filled with intersections. You may ask, what does this have to do with marriage or politics? Well, politically, of course, safety of our citizens rest in policing and how law enforcement interacts with the general public. The way we vote on the local and the national level can impact our police forces. So there's always a political component to policing. In this horrific case, there's a lot of families that were devastated and destroyed. Well, the family of the victim is devastated. They lost a loved one. You can't bring that back. And the 8 people who got fired, I would imagine maybe a few of those people were married. So their family structure has been shaken by the fact the 5 cops did what they did, and the 3 EMTs stood by and didn't do anything according to the protocols. So they got fired too. So these are 8 homes that are going to go through it. 5 of those homes are going to lose their men to jail. So it impacts, family structures. Some of those guys might be married, like I said, and it impacts politics. So, everything kind of intersects. So just to let you know, I write every so often, and I wrote a one-piece article on uh, this incident, and I'm gonna share it with you in a second. All right, yeah, here it goes. So you probably can see it now. The article, of course, is titled "The New Face of Police Brutality to Protect and Serve." So, I wrote this piece in mind about how ironic it is, not only was, but is, but that the new face of police brutality is 5 black men. As black people, we spend a lot of time putting a white face on the brutality of black people. And this incident was as horrific as any incident we have ever seen. The George Floyd incident and all the incidents before that. We didn't get a chance. Even Rodney King, he was getting hit by the batons and stuff, but he survived his injuries and got a little payday and, went on to do whatever he went on to do. But we saw a guy, 140 pound, 150-pound man, get brutally beat to death in what looks like just pure gang violence, you know? And now we're going to be hard pressed to not say that that's the new face of police brutality, right? I mean, how are we going to kind of deny that? So it's sad, it's hurtful, and I don't know what we're going to do about that, other than live with it and see if we can move past it. The other thing that I find, along those lines is that the news media, in their manipulation, is starting to show these 5 guys out of uniform, right, in regular street clothes. So they just look like, they're trying to get you to forget that these guys were policemen sworn to protect and serve, right? So they take them out of uniform so we see them as civilians. But I don't think that's right. I don't think anybody should forget these pictures of these guys as criminals in uniform. I mean, it's something that we shouldn't forget. Now, it's been said all across the country that the police form gang units to combat gangs in the worst neighborhoods. Okay, so you know, I can't say that those are not needed, right? It's not up to me. Policing, they know what they need for their neighborhoods. However, I think that the longer these uh, internal gangs operate, the more corrupt they become. The more free reign that they get, the more corrupt that they become. Because all they're doing is interfacing with the worst of the worst in all of these neighborhoods, and people forget the human condition. Power corrupts. It really does. So they either need to start circulating people through these police gangs, and in this case, the gang was called Scorpion, and either put new people in there or have constant oversight of these guys, so we don't create training day situations. Now everybody saw the movie Training Day. That's exactly how the Scorpion guys were operating. It's pretty much. We don't know all the details, but they had prior complaints against them. So it's not far fetched to think that they've been involved in a lot of heinous situations prior that just didn't get reported. Okay, so so then a lot of folks, you'll start hearing a lot of folks talk about, um, and this is strange. I'm gonna just kind of paint a scenario because there's a lot of folks, not a lot of folks, but there's some folks who believe that the cops were within their rights to do what they did on their initial stop because we don't know what happened before that. Well, there's no reports that this guy had any warrants out. The police chief herself said that they can't confirm that this guy was driving erratically. They can't confirm anything about this thing. No high speed chase, nothing. So the way these guys actually approached this dude, okay, was completely out of control. Right? If you're just imagine this. Imagine you're just a simply innocent human being. You pay your taxes, you're coming home from work or from play, you have no idea what's about to happen to you, right? You're sitting down, you're innocent. You don't have no crimes, no guns, no nothing. And these five savages come up to you and just pull you out your car, throw you on the ground, and start yelling 100 different commands that you couldn't even process because of the duress they put you under. And not only that, they're pepper spraying the hell out of the fucking guy. And then the thing is that they were so stupid and so out of control and so emotional that they pepper sprayed themselves because that's the only way I can see how this guy got away. How did he get away with all these cops on him? They tasered him. They did all kinds of stuff. Nobody said, wow, nobody asked him or told him why they stopped him. None. No, hey, where's your license? Where's your registration? Did you know that you were doing this? They went from 0 to 150 on a guy who had no idea that he did anything wrong. Even when he tried to comply, they wouldn't let him. So I get into some discussions with folks trying to say, well, they were well within their rights to do what they did to begin with. I don't agree with that. Matter of fact, he wasn't running from the cops. He was running from a gang. By then, he was just running to save his life because he could feel the spirit of these guys getting ready to do something very dastardly to him. All right, so, I just, need people to say that, the first part of it to me wasn't as bad as the second part where they beat him to death. But it was bad enough. It was bad enough. Okay, so here's my thought process. And I always bring it back to the political part of this. Black folks, we overwhelmingly vote for the Democrats. And I don't think the Democrats give a shit about the plight of Black people in America where it really counts. They pay us lip service. They give you Juneteenth. They profess this Black History Month thing and all that. But what about real legislation? like a national legislation to remove qualified immunity. Get rid of that. I don't care if people want to quit the police force or not, but get rid of that. Make these guys liable for the decisions they make. That's one. How about the closing private prisons, right? How about closing private prisons? Because we all know that prisons for profit means they have to have chattel to put through the prisons. So they arrest people for anything, and the corrupt judges out there, which there have to be more than just the two, I think they found in Pennsylvania, who took kickbacks to give people extended sentences so the private prisons can make money off the number of heads that they putting in prison. So prison should never be for profit because there's a motivation to get chattel in prison. And how about the loophole in the 13th Amendment that, could put you in jail and treat you like a slave? Another backhanded way of slavery while you're in prison. How about getting rid of that? Where's the Democrats putting that at the top of their planks? It's not. And those things impact black and brown people more than anybody else. Right? So, so this whole scenario should open a whole lot of conversations that we're not having, okay, that impact us and for the votes that we give the Democrats. Now, I'm not saying people need to become Republicans, but we should divest from the Democratic Party and make them fight for our votes. And if you vote for some Republicans, fine. But we probably need an independent party. And I don't know why black folks can't start that. And finally, just calling for training reform may not be enough. It just may not be enough. So Jason Whitlock, I put a scenario out there about these cops and their emotionalism, right? I thought, I just wondered whether these cops came from fatherless homes. This was before Jason Whitlock said anything. I just want to know that. I tried to look it up. I couldn't really find. I didn't really dig that hard because I'm not saying they did or they didn't. But I'd be curious to know whether these cops who should have been logical, should have been methodical, should have followed some kind of protocol, came from fatherless homes. Because from the beginning of the traffic stop to the beating this guy to death, there was pure emotionalism and no logic anywhere to be found. None. That's no different than the gangs in LA or the gangs in Chicago or anywhere else where people get killed over the stupidest shit. So this rumor that, which I heard was a rumor, that this guy, was stroking one of the cops' baby mama. I think somebody threw that out there. But if that was true, if that was really true, and me as a cop can get 5 other cops to come beat a guy to death, there's absolutely no training that you could possibly do to get that out of the police force. None. We if that was true, then we're doomed. But anyway, so the Jason Whitlock came in and said what he said, and I don't agree with him laying this at the feet of the police chief and all that kind of stuff because he erroneously called her a single mother, and she's not. But so he has to take a hit for that. But he had an interesting conversation with Anton Daniels, a guy who's a YouTuber and a millionaire, and they were into a little spat, and so he called out Jason, and Jason came up to talk to him, and it was an interesting conversation. And I'm gonna play a little bit of it for you, here at the end. So here goes.
Someone from my team, like, hey, got me on the show.
So, are you willing to admit that you're wrong yet?
Admit that no, I'm not willing to admit that I'm wrong.
So you jumped on Tuck. You was on Fox News.
Hold on. I'm getting feedback. I'm hearing two different. I'm doing something wrong here for me. You still got me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly fine.
Okay, I think I had this up and the show, and I was hearing an echo.
So let me first by saying that I thank you for having the courage to actually come up here and have this conversation, because most people wouldn't, right? But aside from that, if we getting straight to it, so you were on Tucker Carlson, and the first part of the interview I actually agreed with, right? When you had the conversation and you said that this is closed, open, and shut, and that it was clear that the dude did whatever that he did, and supposed to be arrested, and so on and so forth. But then you went into a conversation and you started talking about specifically Black women, right? Now I'm an equal accountability smoke giver, and I hold people accountable across the board. However, you mentioned supervisor, a single mother supervisor, and then you tied that back into the case specifically. Why is
that? I would think in that part you're talking about the last 60 seconds, I spoke a little inaccurately off the top of my head. I was trying to make an analogy. At that time, I didn't know the woman's marital status. I was using it as an analogy that they basically installed a woman to fix the behavior of young Black men, which is out of control. And so it wasn't speaking specifically about her marital status. It was speaking about the myth that Black women can control, correct, get young Black men in line, and I just don't believe they can do that. And I look at our neighborhoods, the breakdown of our family as evidence of the inability of the matriarchy to produce properly behaving communities, young men, whatever. And so I think they've made a mistake installing this woman to fix a problem that's pretty much focused on the failure of young men.
But see, the problem with that, Mr. Whitlock, is that there's a lot of people, and even in this chat, right? And there's a lot of people that take what you say as gospel.
And this is John Moran, Osama, Caden, and Colby from Solutions 8. And today we're going to be bringing you nothing but us talking about random things that we like in Google. So hopefully you learn a thing or two. Just kidding. We're actually going to be talking about how to identify CAC, which is cost of acquired new customer. That's much different than CPA or cost per conversion.
And they're your supporters, right? And I've even had people that cammed up with me and they told me on Monday, and we already in Wednesday, and they told me Monday, well, Jason was right because it's the Black mother's fault. And I'm like, well, let me find the context. And it took me a couple days to be able to find the context. But the reality is that you don't think that it was incredibly irresponsible or grossly negligent. Well, you got to let me finish the question first.
Again,
you got to let me finish the question.
Negligent the things that I said. No, I don't.
How can you deny something and I didn't even finish the question yet?
Finish the question.
Okay. You don't think that it's grossly negligent to just leave that out there on a large platform such as Fox News, especially specifically addressing a woman whose marital status obviously is the complete opposite of whatever it is that you said on that platform, and then having that tied to and distract people from whatever it is that's being communicated as far as holding these guys accountable for what it is that they did to Tyree Nichols.
I established with the first part of my comments that I believe those men are going to be held responsible. It's an open and shut case. Anybody looks at the video. And so holding those guys accountable, I don't think it can be distracted from. They're going to be held accountable. The video speaks for itself. I don't know if they have much of a defense. I was trying to argue or trying to put in that there's a cultural rot and a family breakdown within Black communities that going to create situations like this over and over and over again. I came back on Monday, wrote a complete column clarifying everything that I said and why that I said it and why it was unpacked that way during a 4-minute TV segment. And then I came back Monday night on my show and expounded on that for 3.5 hours. There were people on my show who disagreed with me and questioned some of the things that I said. So any thought that, you know, I'm.
But did you
reluctant to have
apologize,
people
though?
disagree? No, because I don't have anything to apologize for.
But you were wrong
I agree that you
No, I
shouldn't apologize.
spoke
We apologize.
about a
It
woman
was a mistake.
specifically.
in a way. No, it wasn't about a woman
You
specifically.
did. You used
You
her
actually played the
as
tape.
the poster child.
There's no one that listened to that interview that didn't understand that I was saying the breakdown of black family and our matriarchal culture are the problems.
That was the
in the black
context,
community.
Jason. You led off.
No, that's what I argued.
You led the argument by saying and using her specifically as the
No.
jump off point to
Don't you have the
then
tape?
substantiate your
You can play
argument
the
what it is
tape
that you
of what
wanted
I
to get off
actually
about.
said.
So okay, so let me ask you a question. Let me
You
ask you a
play the
question.
tape of what I actually said.
I just did. I literally
Can we
just
play
did.
it right? Can we play it right now?
Yeah, I'll play it right now. Yep.
Yeah.
Give me a
Just
second.
move to the final 60 seconds.
I got you. Give me a second.
Everyone's behaving inappropriately and 32 years old. Everybody. It was a group coverage to this and weekend coverage of this, and they want to take us to a good place. I would examine the racial element of this because there is a racial element. And this is a story about young black men and their inability to treat each other in a humane way. Everybody involved in this on the street level was either 24 to 32 years old. Everybody. It was a group of young black men, 5-on-1. Looked like gang violence to me. It looked like what young black men do when they're supervised by a single black woman. And that's what they got going on in the Memphis Police Department. They've elected some or put some black woman in charge of the police force. And we're getting the same kind of chaos and disunity and violence that we see in a lot of these cities that are run by single mothers. If we want to discuss the breakdown of family.
So you led off by saying we getting a lot of this dysfunction basically that's happening in a lot of these communities that's basically being ran by single mothers, correct?
Single black women, yes, that is what I said. And again,
Okay, now how is
there would be a period.
Let me ask the question. Let me ask the question. So how is that relevant to this specific issue?
It's relevant to all the.
No. This one.
This one would be under the umbrella of all.
It's not because she's not a single black mother.
That's not my point. I'm saying
it is your point.
Are led by women and run by women, and that's why men are out of control and behaving so poorly.
So you're telling me, hold on, let me substantiate this. Let me just run this back for you real quick. You're telling me that because they have women supervisors, the black men that
said that our communities are in chaos because they're led by black women.
But
this is
I
an
don't disagree with
example of
that's not my problem
with young black men, and Memphis has come up with a solution. Hey, let's go get a black woman to go clean this up. My argument and my position then, although not spoken precisely, but right now, my position is women can't fix what's wrong within our community.
But I guess my question is, I'm not disagreeing with you, Jason. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Argue about what I said imprecisely on the Tucker Carlson show, or we can deal with what I'm actually arguing.
No, because the problem is that you conflated arguments, and it was so easy, especially to the people that's uninformed and just take it based off a surface level.
And I would tell them to go read my column or come watch my show.
But you know that they're not
3.5 hours. Watch this right now where I'm clarifying. Again, we could get bogged down and like Jason spoke imprecisely and said something about this woman, and he wasn't crystal clear. I do a lot of interviews, including this one here.
So you apologize to the woman?
Everything I say is not going to be precise in a short interview. Now, here today on YouTube, where we have a lot of time, if Tucker Carlson or someone had said, "Hey, I think you've spoken imprecisely here. Could you unpack that a little further?" You don't have time for that on his show. That's why you go to other platforms and that.
Hey, right now we're giving this mini solar generator away for free.
That's why I like other platforms where there is no time limit, where you can unpack things in full, where you can have a real conversation, make a mistake, speak a little imprecisely, speak unclearly where people misinterpret your message. But I'm here now on your show explaining you what my real argument is. And
Okay, well, listen, we gonna agree to disagree. I have another question for you.
Hey, you said something imprecise.
We're gonna agree to disagree because you've already said that you wasn't wrong, right? I don't think that you were wrong in the entire conversation because there were parts of the conversation that I actually agreed with you. But to use somebody personally as the jump off point in order to substantiate your argument,
is she going to survive?
I'm sorry?
She's going to survive. If she can't survive me speaking imprecisely on Fox Sports, she needs to get out of the arena.
That's disingenuous, bro. Listen,
people speak imprecisely about me all the time.
Because you didn't speak imprecisely. You've been doing this for a long time, and you know exactly what it is that you're doing. And just because you're good with words, and I may be a little bit more of a C student, but just because you're good with words don't mean that we can't see through it. The problem is that you arrogant, right? And you arrogant, and you've never, I'm not sure if people are really honest with you in your circle and helping you to understand that the greatest measure of a man is doing the thing they don't want to do when they don't want to do it. And so when you don't want to apologize, even when you know you clearly was wrong, and using her as the jump off point for your argument and then say, hey, she should be able to deal with it, that's bullshit. You know that's bullshit.
So any guys watching that ever been in a relationship and there's some little inconsequential point that your woman wants to debate and argue with you about and go to the ends of the earth about something inconsequential, you're seeing this play out right now. And this is what I'm talking about, the female energy with men. We're debating some shit that doesn't mean anything. We're lost in something that there's a real problem.
I like how you did that.
The breakdown of family. And you want to have a big, long argument about something that's completely inconsequential. I'm giving you the time. We could talk about some things more substantive, but we've been trained. Our whole culture is so feminine that we get lost in inconsequential things that mean nothing.
This is the reason why I disagree with that, though, Jason, is because you're trying to spin the narrative to remove accountability. And in order to even be honest about and solve for the problems that we have in our community, the first thing that we have to do is we have to look in the mirror and hold ourselves accountable before we can decide to join inside of another conversation, because that was completely irrelevant to what it was that was being communicated about. And
Antoine didn't want to give him the props because he was right. Even if he was wrong about the sister who's the police chief, he was right that that's inconsequential to the bigger issue of what's going on in the black community. You know, but this is a good conversation. Anybody can go on Anton Daniel's website, I mean not website, but YouTube channel, and find out that and listen to this whole thing. It comes around halfway in because he was talking about other things, but like the 150 mark or something like that.
Talked about on that particular platform. In addition to that, you talked about black men specifically, or you talked about fathers, right? You talked about fathers being raised in a home. So we're gonna go to the space that I'm assuming that you'd rather have a conversation about, because we're just gonna agree to disagree, right? You talk specifically about how, and I'm not sure, and I'm gonna ask for you to clarify. I took it as you were speaking specifically about Tyree Nichols, right? And that black men, or men specifically, don't know how to submit to authority, right? When pulled over, we don't know how to, follow the leadership of whatever it is, or the authority of whoever it is that's pulling us over. Was you speaking specifically about Tyree Nichols, or were you just speaking in general?
Speaking in general.
Okay. So what do you really believe is the issue within the black community specifically? Do you think that it's one thing? Do you think that one thing is bigger than the other? Do you think that it's specifically women, feminism, or how it is that single mothers are raising young men, and that's the demise of our communities? Or do you think that it's something that's bigger than that?
We have no family structure. All properly functioning houses, neighborhoods, counties, cities, states, countries, civilization is founded on family structure, man, woman, and child. That in the history of the world, In the history of the world, there have been no properly functioning societies that aren't based in a family structure, man, woman, and child.
Mm-hmm.
We, black people, have been talked out of the family structure. This has been going on for 60, 70 years. The whole Great Society movement, the government check, replacing the man, feminism movement, black women have bought into it. They want to be the leaders. I have a biblical worldview. Man is meant for leadership, and that's the role that he was called into and created for by God. Uh,
See, Anton can't argue that because that's what he says on the Repeat Network all the time about him being a leader. Right? So you can't disagree with Jason Whitlow on that point.
and we're just out of order with God's natural order. And so anytime you're this out of order and you reject the family in the level that we have, talk about on my show, I'm
Mm-hmm.
guilty of it. Other
What do you mean by you guilty of it?
my own I did not. I prioritized career success and a bunch of other BS early in my life more so than family because I was completely out of line and living in the world and had.
All right, I'm gonna stop it there. All right, because go see it all yourself. Because he's not just putting this on women, right? Because he just admitted that he was out of line as well. I think we're both out of line. Our community is out of line on both sides, and the blame can be spread around to everybody. But the but it's different for men and women, right? Our blame is one, and their blame is another. Taking those two together, we have a destructive society. And I've said this more and more than once on my Facebook page that we're pretty much at the precipice of becoming completely irrelevant as a subculture in the United States. We don't have any family structure. Our women have very little covering, and there's probably some reasons for that. And I have a theory about that, but I'm not going to share that here. And men, just not just black men, but the Western man in general has allowed themselves to be emasculated, effeminated, by the combination of feminism and the movement of the LBGYNs and rainbow people, whatever they call themselves. And, so it's, and all the other kind of people in between that have an issue with men being masculine and being who we are by nature, right? So yeah, we don't want to, all the freedoms that all the subgroups, including blacks, come by the grace of men. Women are free to move in the West because men allow it, right? And that's it, So, but that the respect for that is gone, is absolutely gone. And we're living through the ramifications. All right, what's going on with our children, the indoctrination, and all the changes they're trying to do. And those men, those cops, whether they have fatherless homes or not, I would imagine they're in a demographic where 70% of the men of children came from fatherless households. So at least two or three of them might not be a far fetch to say they might not have had a father in the house, but who knows? But it's almost immaterial because they're still part of the environment. Anyhow, so that's all I have for this one. And thanks for listening. Please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Leave me some comments. I don't care which way they are. They could be good ones, they could be bad ones, but that's it. So thanks for listening. If you got to the end, I appreciate you listening. Bye.